everyone. Welcome to Daily Revelations. So today the study that we had in our planner, and look below if you haven't downloaded this planner yet. Actually, this is the side that's printed. This is the side with my notes for today. But we talked about the volunteers, people that volunteered, and how the people blessed those who volunteered. And I hope it was a good exercise for me because I didn't think about all the things that family would have given. So we learned in the previous verses that the dice were thrown, lots were chosen, 110 families were picked, but within those families were family units that actually moved there. So it was somebody, a relative of yours, that was chosen to go live in the city, and the rest of the family in the community that they were chosen from blessed them with many things. And I thought of actually a lot of them. So I hope that was good exercise for you as well. What I do want to talk about today is in verse 3, it also says that these men volunteered. They chose to volunteer, and that word just really stuck out to me since I run a nonprofit and I volunteer. My people that work for me volunteer, and I've been praying a lot about some things with that. And so I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to reference that word in some other Old Testament and see what I come up with. And it was interesting. There's two places, both in Judges 5 and in Psalm 111, that sheds more light onto that. And that's what my huge notes are about. But in the Old Testament, you see that oftentimes, and it's this constant cycle of Israel leaving God handing them over to their enemy, and then them crying out to God, and God coming in and using someone who volunteers to be the leader, to be the people, to fight against that person, to then overcome. So that's what was happening in Judges 5. So in Judges 5, the people had done evil. God gave them over to an enemy, and Deborah, who was a prophet at that time, was sitting under her tree where she was to be found, and the leader that had volunteered himself to command the army for Israel, because this was the time of Judges. There was no king, there was no appointed army. People just kind of volunteered. It was like the volunteer fire department. And so he was brought up to be the leader of this, and he knew that he needed God on his side. So he brought Deborah along and said, you got to come with me. So anyways, but these are the two verses where they talk about volunteers in that whole process. It says that the leaders led Israel, that the people volunteered, bless the Lord. That was verse 2. And then verse 9 goes, my heart goes out to the commanders of Israel, the volunteers among the people, bless the Lord. When people volunteer, when they put their time and effort and money into things that they could just easily walk away from, it says something. It says, this is worth my life. These people were fighting. They chose to possibly die. That they were staking something that they truly believed in to do without ever possibly getting anything back. And Psalm 110:3 says this, your people will volunteer freely in the day of your power. And that power also can mean splendor or holiness. And as I was praying and thinking over that, I thought, you know what, as God's splendor and holiness increases in our life, and as we see him working in different areas through different venues where we can volunteer our time, our money, that is when we will give freely. We will give more freely than ever before, because what overpowers us is what we see of God, and we want to be part of that. And that's how we even start our walk as Christians. And I was thinking about that as well, is that we have to freely give our hearts to God, make him Lord in our life. It isn't that, oh, I'm going to become a Christian, I'm going to believe, and then I get all this. Jesus even said, you'll be persecuted like me. But what we do get out of it is that closeness to God and his holiness and his splendor. And that's worth giving up so many things, everything in this world. So I just wrote that, that's our free will we give up first. We give up our time. We give up our possessions. We give up our money. We give up all those things freely because of what we truly believe in. That's more important than any of those things. And we celebrate that by how we give of ourselves and how we volunteer. And so I have a little note here. It says, the more powerful we see God's holiness and splendor fill our lives, the less we hold on to the things of this world. And it's easier to give it up and give it back. Because God gives us things. And he doesn't say, well, you have to give it back to me. But his desire is that we will love him so much that we will give it up to him. And that through that, we'll be an example to others around us. Life on this, because that's how much it means to me. That's how much God means to me. So I hope that's an encouragement to you from that word volunteer in verse 3, and just kind of where that went with my readings this morning. So anyways, hope you're doing well. And hey, Morgan, thanks for joining me. Smiley face back to you too. So have an awesome day, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless. Bye.